If you've ever smiled through a dinner where the knives were words, this one's for you. I'm Renee Caldwell, 42, born and raised on Philadelphia's Main Line, and for most of my adult life, I learned how to disappear in a room I paid for. Tell me where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story travels. And if you've ever felt small in someone else's house, hit like and subscribe, because tonight is the night we stop whispering. The morning of Julian's birthday, the house smelled like jasmine and money. The private florist worked in the foyer. The chef plated eggs the color of gold. I had chosen his gift carefully. A limited edition watch he'd been angling to, accidentally, have photographed at a fundraiser. Julian Price, 7 years younger, public charm, private frost. My husband, an up-and-coming candidate with a perfect smile and the emotional depth of a saucer. I came downstairs at 10:16 with a handwritten note tucked into an envelope. A $100,000 donation in his name to a children's literacy fund. He loved how generosity looked on him. Voices in the next room. The door, slightly open. My mistake was stopping. His mother, Veronica, had that voice that could peel paint off a manor house. Julian laughed first. She's useful, Mom. She looks solid in photos. But I'm not staying married to a Caldwell forever. I'm staying married to her money. Veronica didn't miss a beat. Then smile till the ink dries, baby. After that, cut the ribbon and run. Men like you don't build lifetimes with ballast. I didn't drop the envelope. I didn't gasp. I didn't even breathe. I turned, went back upstairs, and closed my bedroom door so quietly, even the magnolias outside didn't stir. That night, I wore silk, poured the vintage, and slid the watch across the table with a smile that did not belong to me. He kissed my cheek like he was checking a box. Veronica suggested a diet with a grin that would photograph well. Everyone laughed. I watched them both with a calm that wasn't calm at all. It was planning. Past midnight, while the house slept like a museum, I walked it. Every framed certificate, every imported chair, every antique I'd bought to match a life that never fit. In the study, I wrote a single line. Thank you for saying it out loud. Then I opened my laptop, and the woman they thought was ornamental started moving pieces. Quiet wire transfers, clean paperwork, a sale lined up through a broker who wouldn't blink at a private LLC. By dawn, the house was already spoken for, not by them, not anymore. I left with a backpack, a coat, a passport, and a photo of me at 18 on a Jersey beach, arms stretched wide like I owned the horizon. By noon, the phones were awake and angry. Julian stormed room to room, shouting my name, finding only the note on a pillow and a house that suddenly owned itself. He called me. Nothing. He called his mother. Silence turned her careful voice to glass, on TV, speculation. Missing socialite. Quiet mansion sale. Political turmoil. They called it a scandal. I called it breathing. I was on a bus to New Orleans, headed for a neighborhood where nobody cared about last names, and nobody would recognize my face without the foundation gala lighting. I got off in the 9th Ward under a sun that felt brutally honest. Houses shouldered each other like old friends who'd survived too much. A handwritten sign on a fence read, "Room for rent." Shared bath. No questions, no questions. For once, that sounded like mercy. The room was small. The fan had opinions. The window stuck. It felt like mine in a way 9,000 square feet never did. I paid cash. The landlady looked me over with a kind of X-ray kindness and said, "We don't need your story to like you. But if you have one, keep it safe till you trust somebody." That first night, I didn't cry. I stared at the ceiling and let the silence wash the starch out of my spine. The community clinic 2 blocks over had a waiting room made of plastic chairs and determination. A hand-painted sign, "We won't turn you away." Inside, Dr. Mateo Alvarez, sleeves rolled, eyes like he'd seen too much and kept going anyway. "You hurt?" he asked. "Not where you can stitch," I said, "but I can organize an army out of a junk drawer." "Need help?" He looked at me for a beat too long, like he'd found a file in his brain he didn't know he'd been searching for. We need hands more than we need questions. I became the kind of useful I'd never been allowed to be. I learned the backroom geography, stacked boxes, sorted mills, wrote grants that sounded like begging and truth at the same time. No one asked who I was before. They only cared who I was now. That's where I met Kenyatta, 8 years old, a lion's name in a small girl's body. Her grandma, Miss Pearl, brought her in for coughing that sounded too old for her lungs. Mateo listened, frowned. We'll test for asthma and lead. Water lines are old. She needs treatment now. Miss Pearl squeezed my hand when the doctor stepped out. You talk like you used to run meetings, baby. But your shoulders say you know how to carry things. I said nothing. She nodded like I'd confessed anyway. Just remember, people here see souls before suits. Decide which one you want to be seen. Weeks passed. I slept less but felt alive. We held a block fundraiser with tables borrowed from churches and music borrowed from car speakers. I coordinated permits, pies, and patience. Neighbors brought what they had. Pralines, quilts, second chances. We raised enough to breathe another month. One afternoon, Mateo murmured to a nurse about a contractor who'd gotten city money to replace poisoned lines and never finished. A familiar name surfaced in the paperwork, someone tied to a price donor list. I didn't flinch, but inside, a match struck a room full of gasoline. That night on the porch, Miss Pearl pushed a plate of red beans into my hands. Whatever you're running from, she said, run toward something louder, so I did. I found a vacant grocery with a roof that leaked like gossip and a lease nobody wanted. I signed it under a new nonprofit, Open Door Collective. Our mission fit on one page. Safe water, safe homes, safe women. I moved the last of my clean money into it and swore I wouldn't use it to hide. I'd use it to build. Mateo looked tired and proud. This isn't a secret life anymore, Renee. I never wanted a secret life, I said. I wanted a real one. He caught my name like I'd tossed him a key. Renee, he repeated softly, as if he'd known it all along. Word travels. Not by headlines, by air. 3 months in, a black SUV with big city windows rolled slow past the clinic. I saw it before I heard it. Felt it before I saw it. The tremor that says run. I didn't sprint. I just stepped sideways into an alley and became ordinary brick. The SUV kept crawling. It left. My fear didn't. That night, Kenyatta tied a red string bracelet around my wrist. So you don't leave, she said, solemn as a judge. I'm tied, I promised, even if I untie it. Later, alone, I pulled the photo of 18-year-old me from my bag. Arms wide, the world still saying yes. I asked her for courage. I think she rolled her eyes and said, about time. Lead tests came back ugly. Mateo cursed under his breath. They signed off on replacements that never happened. He showed me the paper trail. Payments approved, pipes untouched. Some invoices were routed through a shell company I recognized from a donor spreadsheet I'd once helped curate, thinking I was doing good. I knew then. Disappearing wasn't enough. Talking wouldn't be either. We needed a case. I called a journalist who used to stand politely at Caldwell galas with a tape recorder and a spine. We met at a diner that smelled like sincerity and bacon. I slid a folder across the table. She opened it. The room went quiet around her hands. This implicates your husband, she said, and half of City Hall. He's not my anything, I said, steady. But those pipes are these kids' lungs, she nodded. And you? I took the red string between my fingers. I'm ready to say my name out loud. We built the story brick by brick. Clinic records, test results, photos of corroded lines, city contracts with ghosts for signatures. When it ran, it wasn't gossip. It was proof. Phones exploded. A grand jury formed. Cameras found the SUV and followed it like a storm. He came on a Tuesday, the day we hand out filters and dignity. Julian stood in our doorway in a suit that didn't know where it was. The volunteers went still. Mateo stepped forward and didn't yield an inch. I'm not here to fight, Julian said, eyes scanning for an exit even as he spoke. We can fix this. If you come home, we can... There is no home you and I stand in together, I said. My voice surprised me with how calm it was. This is my home. These are my people. You were busy building a brand while kids here drank a chemical. He tried a sigh that used to work. Renee, be reasonable. I am, I said. For the first time in 10 years. He handed me an envelope. If you go public against me, I go public against you. I handed one back. You already did. The night you forgot doors carry sound. His jaw flickered. He left without opening what I'd given him. Later, I learned it was a photocopy of a donor ledger that connected his campaign to the pipe contractor, and a handwritten line, Power without people is just a performance. I'm done clapping. I wish I could say the next chapter was easy. It wasn't. While we fought for clean water and honest books, my own body started telling a truth I didn't want to hear. Autoimmune. Lupus. The diagnosis came with a pamphlet no one should have to read alone. I sat on the clinic steps with the sun too bright and the world too loud. Mateo didn't say I'm sorry like a script. He sat beside me and let the silence be warm. Does this end the work? He asked finally. It ends hiding, I said. It starts the work of letting people help. That night, I drafted papers that moved every remaining asset I controlled into the Open Door Collective. Not to run, to root. I wrote a mission statement on a white wall in the old grocery. No woman should vanish to survive. No child should be poisoned to save a budget. We opened without a ribbon, just a community. Filtration kits, legal aid hours, a kitchen that served red beans, and yes, a tiny room with a locked cabinet marked emergency housing that started more lives than I can count. Miss Pearl taught me how to trust an onion before you chop it. Kenyatta learned to run her inhaler like a pro, and then started bossing the adults about theirs. Mateo slept too little and smiled too much and didn't apologize for either. The lawsuits took their time. The indictments took their bows. The city started changing its pipes not because it was scandalized, but because we didn't stop showing up at council meetings with names, not numbers. And the Ninth Ward whispered my real name like a blessing that didn't need a headline. Renee. Some endings happen in a room so quiet, you can hear a heart be gracious. Mine came softly. No drama, no cameras. Just breath, then not. Before that, I left letters in a drawer that stuck from humidity. To Mateo. Don't measure your worth in hours saved. Measure it in hands held. Keep one for yourself. To Miss Pearl. Thank you for naming what I was before I did. Please keep feeding stubborn women until they say, I'm hungry. To Julian. We're not enemies. We're nothing. Learn to be alone. That's where people find their shape. To Kenyatta. You saved me. The red bracelet worked both ways. When you're scared, tie a new one and keep moving. Write your story so nobody else writes it for you. They scattered my ashes in the open door garden, between a lemon tree we could never get to behave, and a mural the kids painted of a sky bigger than a roof. The clinic kept working. The cases kept moving. The water ran clearer. Kenyatta made good on that last line. She wrote a children's book called The Girl Who Breathed the River Clean, and she read it out loud on the very steps where I'd sat with a diagnosis and a decision. The grown men cried first. Don't let them tell you different. Mateo carries a locket he never shows, and I hope he never feels like he has to. Some love belongs in a pocket over your heart where only you can touch it. Julian tried a memoir. The city didn't buy it. Power that needs applause goes quiet when the clapping stops. Veronica, if you're curious, started showing up to volunteer nights in a plain t-shirt and old sneakers. The first time she swept floors, Miss Pearl handed her a fresh broom and said, Welcome. We got more dust than shame here. Veronica laughed for the first time like a person and not a portrait. She never asked for forgiveness. She earned usefulness. If you're listening from a kitchen where the knives are still words, if your name has been used like currency, if you've been told you're ballast, not a sail, tie a string on your wrist. Say your name out loud. You don't need an island or a fortune to build a table. You need a door and the courage to hinge it. Tell me where you're listening from. And if this helped you breathe, hit like and subscribe. Not for numbers, but so this story finds the next person still whispering. I'm Renee. I don't whisper anymore, and neither will you.